Day 40, Egypt and Exodus, Exodus 22, Leviticus 15, Psalm 75, let's begin. Exodus 22. If anyone will have stolen an ox or a sheep, and if he kills it or sells it, then he will restore 5 oxen for 1 ox, and 4 sheep for 1 sheep. If a thief will have been discovered breaking into a house, or digging under it, and he has received a mortal wound, he who struck him down will not be guilty of blood. But if he did this when the sun was risen, he has perpetrated a homicide, and he shall die. If he does not have the means to make restitution for the theft, he shall be sold. If whatever he stole should be found with him, a living thing, either an ox, or a donkey, or a sheep, he shall repay double. If there is any damage to a field or a vineyard, when he has released his cattle to pasture on the land of a stranger, he shall repay the best of what he has in his own field, or in his own vineyard, according to the estimation of the damage. If a fire will have been discovered departing from brush, and taking hold in stacks of grain, or in crops standing in the fields, whoever ignited the fire shall repay the damages. If anyone will have entrusted money, or a container, to his friend to keep, and if these have been stolen from the one who received them, if the thief is found, he shall repay double. If the thief is unknown, the lord of the house will be brought before the heavens to swear that he did not lay his hand on the goods of his neighbor, so as to perpetrate any fraud, such as with an ox, or a donkey, or a sheep, or clothing, nor to do anything that would be able to cause damage. The case of both shall be brought before the heavens. And if they give judgment against him, he shall repay double to his neighbor. If anyone will have entrusted a donkey, an ox, a sheep, or any animal to the keeping of his neighbor, and it will have died, or become disabled, or have been captured by enemies, and no one saw it, then there shall be an oath between them, that he did not lay his hand on the goods of his neighbor. And the owner shall accept the oath, and he will not be compelled to make restitution. But if it will have been taken away by theft, he shall repay the damages to the owner. If it has been eaten by a wild beast, let him carry what was killed to him, and then he shall not make restitution. If anyone borrows from his neighbor any of these things, and it has died or been disabled when the owner was not present, he shall be compelled to make restitution. But if the owner was present, he shall not make restitution, especially if it had been brought for hired work. If a man has led astray a virgin not yet betrothed, and he has slept with her, he shall pay her dowry and have her as a wife. If the father of the virgin is not willing to give her, he shall pay money according to manner of a dowry, which virgins are accustomed to receive. You shall not permit practitioners of the black arts to live. Whoever has sexual intercourse with an animal shall be put to death. Whoever immolates to gods, other than to the Lord, shall be killed. You shall not harass the newcomer, nor shall you afflict him. For you yourselves were once newcomers in the land of Egypt. You shall not harm a widow or an orphan. If you hurt them, they will cry out to me, and I will hear their cry. And my fury will be enraged, and I will strike you down with the sword. And your wives will become widows, and your sons will become orphans. If you lend money to the poor of my people who live among you, you shall not coerce them like a collector, nor oppress them with usury. If you take a garment from your neighbor as a pledge, you shall return it to him again before the setting of the sun. For it is all that he has to cover himself, to clothe his body, nor does he have anything else in which to sleep. If he cries out to me, I will hear him, because I am compassionate. You shall not disparage the heavens, and you shall not speak evil of the leader of your people. You shall not delay in paying your tithes and your firstfruits. You shall give the firstborn of your sons to me. You shall do likewise with those of the oxen and the sheep. For 7 days let it be with its mother, on the 8th day you shall repay it to me. You shall be holy men for me. The flesh from which beasts will have tasted, you shall not eat, but you will throw it to the dogs. Leviticus 15. And the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, Speak to the sons of Israel, and say to them, The man who undergoes a flow of seed shall be unclean. And then he shall be judged subject to this fault, if a filthy fluid, at each moment, adheres to his flesh and gathers there. Every bed on which he sleeps shall be unclean, and every place where he sits. If any man has touched his couch, he shall wash his clothes, and having washed with water, he shall be unclean until evening. If he will have sat where that man has sat, he shall also wash his clothes, and having washed with water, he shall be unclean until evening. Whoever has touched his flesh shall wash his clothes, and having washed with water, he shall be unclean until evening. If such a man has cast his spittle upon him who is clean, he shall wash his clothes, and having washed with water, he shall be unclean until evening. The saddle on which he has sat shall be unclean. And whatever has been under him who has undergone a flow of seed shall be polluted until evening. Whoever carries any of these things shall wash his clothes, and having washed with water, he shall be unclean until evening. All whom such a one has touched, not having washed his hands before, shall wash his clothes, and having washed with water, he shall be unclean until evening. If he has touched an earthen vessel, it shall be broken. But if it is a wooden vessel, it shall be washed with water. If he who suffers from this affliction will have been healed, he shall number 7 days after his cleansing, and having washed his clothes and his entire body in living water, he shall be clean. Then, on the 8th day, he shall take 2 turtle-doves or 2 young pigeons, and he shall advance, in the sight of the Lord, toward the door of the tabernacle of the testimony, and he shall give these to the priest, who shall offer one for sin, and the other as a holocaust. And he shall pray for him before the Lord, so that he may be cleansed from the flow of his seed. A man from whom the seed of sexual intercourse goes out shall wash his entire body with water, and he shall be unclean until evening. The garment or skin which he will have, he shall wash with water, and it shall be unclean until evening. The woman with whom he has had sexual intercourse shall be washed with water, and she shall be unclean until evening. The woman who, at the return of the month, undergoes the flow of blood shall be separated for 7 days. All who will touch her shall be unclean until evening. And everything on which she sleeps or sits, in the days of her separation, shall be polluted. Whoever will have touched her bed shall wash his clothes, and having washed himself with water, he shall be unclean until evening. Anyone who will have touched any item on which she has sat shall wash his clothes, and having washed himself with water, he shall be polluted until evening. If a man has sexual intercourse with her in the time of her monthly flow of blood, he shall be unclean for 7 days, and every bed on which he sleeps shall be polluted. The woman who undergoes a flow of blood many days beyond her time of menstruation, or whose blood does not cease to flow after the menstrual blood, as long as she is subject to this affliction, she shall be unclean, just as if she were in her time of menstruation. Every bed on which she sleeps, and every item on which she sits, shall be polluted. Whoever will have touched these shall wash his clothes, and having washed himself with water, he shall be unclean until evening. If the blood has stopped and has ceased to flow, she shall number 7 days for her purification. And on the 8th day she shall offer for herself, to the priest, 2 turtle-doves or 2 young pigeons, at the door of the tabernacle of the testimony. And he shall offer one for sin, and the other as a holocaust, and he shall pray for her before the Lord, and for the flow of her uncleanness. Therefore, you shall teach the sons of Israel to be cautious of uncleanness, so that they may not die in their filth, when they will have polluted my tabernacle, which is among them. This is the law of him who undergoes a flow of seed, or who is polluted by sexual intercourse, and of her who is separated in the time of menstruation, or who has a continual flow of blood, and of the man who sleeps with her. Psalm 75. Unto the end. With praises. A psalm of Asaph. A canticle to the Assyrians. In Judea, God is known. In Israel, his name is great. And his place has been formed with peace. And his dwelling place is in Zion. In that place, he has broken the powers of the bows, the shield, the sword, and the battle. You illuminate wondrously from the mountains of eternity. All the foolish of heart have been disturbed. They have slept their sleep, and all the men of riches have found nothing in their hands. At your rebuke, O God of Jacob, those who were mounted on horseback have fallen asleep. You are terrible, and so, who can withstand you? From thence is your wrath. You have caused judgment to be heard from heaven. The earth trembled and was quieted. When God rose up in judgment in order to bring salvation to all the meek of the earth. For the thinking of man will confess to you, and the legacy of his thinking will keep a feast day to you. Make vows and pay them to the Lord your God. All you who surround him bring gifts, to him who is terrible. Even to him who takes away the spirit of leaders, to him who is terrible with the kings of the earth.